honor to recognize these 10 individuals present here today for this significant event. Let me start by firstly recognizing our special guest, Chief Medaria Arredondo, former Chief of Police of Minneapolis, United States of America. You are welcome, Chief. Members of the diplomatic corps, His Excellency Dr. Jacob Hashiwaba, Chairman Embassy, Mr. Zoltan Seri, Deputy Head of Delegation, European Union, Madam Sally Sheliger, Director, International Accounting and Law Enforcement Affairs, that's the INL. I want to recognize representatives of the United Nations here present, our international partners present. Let me take this time to also recognize River Chief Senator Ward Charles Sibley. You are highly welcome. Justice Minister in Oswald 12, Honorable Tanya Robson, Deputy Minister for Budget and Development Plan, Ministry of Finance, senior officers of Liberia National Police, headed by our dynamic and energetic, illustrious IG, Honorable Dr. Eric Other invited guests, members of the full estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here and gracing us with your presence this evening. I thank you.
That was the voice of the ID spokesperson of the Liberia National Police. Can she get a hand on applause? Honorable William Kilmore, Deputy Inspector General of Police for Administration, you are welcome for a welcome remark, sir. A hand on applause for him.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, even and welcome to this important event organized by the Liberia National Police in collaboration with EDITA, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. It is truly an honor to have you all here today as we all gather here today to explore strategies for strengthening police service delivery in Liberia. We are delighted to welcome Mr. Medaria Arredondo, our guest of honor, former Chief of Police of the Minneapolis Police Department, USA, whose extensive expertise and insights have been instrumental in identifying key operational gaps within the LNP. His initial assessment with our senior members of the Liberia National Police on July 31st, 2024 marked a critical step towards enhancing our capacity to uphold justice, protect citizens, and foster trust through community policing in Liberia. That's the center of our RG's vision, community-oriented policing. This evening's program is designed to build on those foundations in addressing the challenges we have as a law enforcement agency operating in a developing nation. It also provides an opportunity to share our solutions and strategy, and also recommendations that Chief Medaria Arredondo has done his assessment of the LNP that we provided us this evening, so that our honorees, or our guests, our partners, will look at those assessment, our baseline assessment, program there is that Chief Arredondo, he left being called Arrandondo. Yes. Arrandondo was invited here in July based on the RG's perception of how we can strengthen the LMP with regard to service delivery. Because when we initially took over, there were some mishaps of the LMP. There were shipping incidents, like the King George incident, the rehab incident, and the RG, in his very frame of mind, decided that we need to build this capacity. What can we do to stop this police misconduct? And looking at the kind of work that Chief Arredondo did in Minneapolis with regard to the George Floyd situation in 2020, so he decided in time to see what he can do to strengthen our capacity. So we had a seminar in July, the 31st of July. We met all the senior officers of the we had a seminar that was very good. And besides the seminar, he also had a one-on-one discussion with every sectional head, every department head, every division head to see where the gaps are. So after his assessment, he went back to the US and that we were not satisfied. So we asked him to come back to do a presentation to our partners, to the diplomatic corps to see where intervention can be made with regard to the gaps in the LMP. So today we have him here as our guest of honor. You are welcome, sir. We are here again to do this presentation, and we hope that our panel, the diplomatic corps, what we have here is baseline assessment and see where there will be intervention to help the LMP to have a better service delivery. So on behalf of the Director of Police, I want to use this opportunity to welcome all of you to this very important program. And Chief Arredondo, you are very welcome to have it welcome. And thanks for coming, and thanks for your support of the LMP. Thank you.
Acting Head of Peacekeeping Desk, Liberia National Police, Superintendent Arredondo Stewart. She's coming to do the official introduction of our guest of honor, Chief Arredondo.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, good evening to you all. Today, December 6, 2024, I see Father and stand on the shoulder of great chief. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to introduce Chief Medaria Arredondo, affectionately known as Chief Rondo, a trailblazer in law enforcement and public service, with a career spanning over 32 years, including 5 years as the first Black police chief of Minneapolis before retirement. Chief Arredondo exemplifies leadership, courage, and commitment to justice. For his career highlight, Chief Rondo's distinguished career in the Minneapolis Police Department saw himself in various leadership roles, including Precinct Commander, Commander of Internal Affairs, Inspector, Deputy Chief of Staff, and Chief of Police. Also, during his leadership role, faced with the crisis during his leadership time, internationally, he was recognized for his decisive leadership during the famous George Floyd crisis. Chief Rondo acted swiftly to ensure accountability by dismissing the officers involved. He also implemented reforms to enhance police transparency and accountability, solidifying his legacy as the reformative leader. For his innovative contributions, Chief Rondo during his tenure included the establishment of groundbreaking systems to monitor officers' behavior in efforts to reform police union contracts, fostering greater trust between law enforcement and the community. His professional affiliations and achievements. He is a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, National Academy. He is also a member of the Police Executive Research Forum and the U.S. Major Cities Chiefs Association. For Chief Rondo's security leadership, was directed as security operations for major events, including the Super Bowl. And for his current endeavors, Chief Rondo now serves as President and CEO of Optimus Sue Consulting, sharing his expertise with global organizations, including the Liberia National Police. He is also the author of Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for George Floyd 2025. With a standing ovation, distinguished guests, kindly join me in welcoming our esteemed guest of honor, Chief Medaria Arredondo. Sir, you are most welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Thank you so much. To the Honorable Dr. Inspector General Policing Greg Coleman, thank you so much, sir, for the welcome and having me here today. For distinguished members of UNITAR, thank you so very much for your presence. It was a wonderful opportunity to see the celebration ceremony that was conducted earlier today with the distinguished members of the LNP. So thank you so much for the steadfast work that you all do. For our dignitaries here today, our governing ministers and officials, thank you so much for your work. Our European Union members and our His Excellency from Germany, thank you also very much. And to our esteemed leaders of the LNP that make this work go each and every day, thank you. I know that Director Sally Schlegel could not be here. Senior Police Advisor Steve Kissick, thank you for being here as well. So, with that, as part of IGP Coleman's vision, in terms of how he wants to proceed to move the LNP forward to be that respected policing service that the community in Liberia see as both trusted and legitimate, he asked me to come in and to do an assessment of take a temperature of where the LNP is currently at. Many leaders can find having someone take a very candid look at their organizations, can find that sometimes very cautious or nervously tepid on that. I want to commend you, IGP Coleman, for having the courage and wanting to, again, build and move this department forward, your policing services forward, so I want to thank you for that. Before I start real quick, I just want to introduce my colleague, Jennifer Ami. Jennifer Ami is really centered in data research. Data tells our story. She is centered on data. She is someone that has an acumen for measurement and tracking of data and how that plays a role in organizations. She also great ability to work with data teams to interpret visualization of that data, and so I'm so happy to have her as part of the team.
Thank you, Rondo. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's a real privilege to be able to speak to such a distinguished audience, and we have a slide in here as an introduction to Rondo, but I cannot possibly top the introductions that you've already presented, especially Superintendent Stewart. That was amazing. So I will just add a couple of things. Yes, it's true, you can all call him Rondo. Just go right ahead. That is what he prefers. And just from the perspective of how Rondo is viewed in the United States for his leadership through the George Floyd crisis, he is really viewed as the face of integrity in policing in America today. And his
So as Inspector General Coleman wanted to move this department forward and take a look in terms of this assessment, he wanted to make sure that it was grounded in evidence-based work. He also was centering this work toward a more peaceful, just society for Liberians. And you're to be commended for that. Trust is the pillar for his vision as we move forward. He understands that the Liberian people will judge the LNP in terms of that trusting relationship that they have with him. He understands that there are challenges inherently with that, but he's working towards that. And that is a common theme throughout this assessment that occurred. Part of this assessment is also talking about the growth in service from the LNP and enhancing the support and readiness of LNP officers when they are not only called to assist their own fellow Liberians, but as we're seeing now with the work of UNITAR, being prepared, being professionally ready and responsible to be deployed when other neighboring nations are going through whether it's a humanitarian crisis or conflict. And again, I was honored to be a part of that celebration ceremony of those LNP officers under the leadership of IGP Coleman, who are now going to be ready to help not only their own neighbors of Liberians, but across the globe as they deem fit. As I mentioned, with any organization, there's going to be challenges. The LNP is not like any others, whether it's here in this country or back in the States. What this work is trying to do under the leadership of IGP Coleman is to build capacity for those professional policing services that are in alignment with his vision. The culmination of the work back this summer involves some very candid, important stakeholder conversations. I say candid because when IGP Coleman reached out to me, I said I would absolutely be honored to do this work, but I need those stakeholders to be very candid, honest, and open. And he said, absolutely. As a matter of fact, he conveyed that to the leadership teams and everyone who was a part of the LNP that I had an opportunity to interview, for them to be candid. He understands as leader that the only way that this organization can grow is they have to know what's working, what's not working. He wants to make those improvements, so I appreciate that candor and his direction of leadership. It involved several different people, leadership organizations, and those are just some of them that you see displayed there. So, I arrived in Liberia. I'm now officially adopted earlier this summer, and so I understand one of the first observations that I realized about this great country of Liberia is its people. It's their hopefulness. It's their resiliency. Amidst the struggles of infrastructure, economy, all of those things, it's the people that I had an opportunity to meet one-on-one. And I want to just share a story to tell you why I'm centered in this work. During that summer, we were traveling around to different places in the area. And at one stop, the IGP got out. He was met by community members, and there happened to be this one elderly woman, Liberian woman, who walked with me. If I had to take a guess, she might have been 90 years old. And she walks up to me and she says, apparently she knew I wasn't Liberian. She says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Ma'am, I'm from the United States." And she gets closer and she says, "Whereabouts?" And I said, "It's a place called Minnesota." And without hesitating, she draws closer to me. She puts her tiny arms around mine, draws me, and she says, "Welcome home, son. Welcome home, son." That's what centers me in this work. That's what centers me in this work. Peace, justice, and healing. These are cornerstones to IGP Coleman and how he wants and knows how he wants his vision to move the LNP forward in their service. Throughout these interviews, and I have to say this because some of the leaders of the LNP are in this room today, I heard the challenges. There are many. There are many challenges that LNP officers and the rank and file are experiencing. They too have families, they have aging parents, they have children who might have medical issues. They have also suffered and endured through 2 civil wars. When I asked them to a person, What makes you still get up every morning to put that uniform on? Resoundingly, they said, Rhonda, because for the first time we have a generation of children that have not had to go through it. And we've got to do better by it. We've got to do better by it. Those are the leaders, the men and women that you have under your direction. Actually, we wanted to just make sure that was mentioned. The time is now for Liberia. The Honorable IGP has taken the lead as IGP his first year leading the services. There is momentum. There is momentum because of his leadership. There is momentum because of the leadership of individuals like UHP Moha and others in the room today. There is momentum because of community and government people. INL and the great work that you're doing to continue to support the work. There is momentum here. And there is momentum because of the men and women of it who are also just participating in UNITAR, who are saying, we are ready to not only help our own communities, but our neighbors as well across the region. So it is here. Under His Excellency, President Joseph Boakai, strong democracy, but we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make a difference, particularly for young people. And as I was doing my assessments and been out, we did podcasts with young people. The young people also, you can sense that the time is now. They want to see just more positivity for this country growing up closer. So, I'm about to share with you, myself and Jen are going to share with you some of the priorities. We call them the urgent priorities. But all of them come also, they're in alignment with His Excellency's rule of law. And I will just highlight a couple. When we talk to Liberians, and certainly when we talk to the men and women of Liberia National Police Service, under his leadership, under IGP Colonization, everyone wants access to justice. And I will just say this here, one of the similarities. Whether you're Liberian, the chances of you running into His Excellency in your neighborhood are probably pretty slim. But you are more likely to see a Commander Blessing, right? The LNP, they are going to be the first face of government, very similar to American policing. Most people are not going to see the U.S. President in their neighborhood, but they are going to see the men and women who wear that uniform. And they are a symbol and a sign of that justice. The people of Liberia and under IGP Coleman, he knows that they need to see access to justice under the LNP. Accountability in public service. Before any Liberian citizen makes a complaint against any alleged misconduct of a Liberian police officer, if the LNP knows that exists, they have to be accountable first to their own. That's where that trust and legitimacy occur. And that was communicated to me by the members of the LNP. And then also, His Excellency talks about having core relations and global engagements. Is the reason why I'm here as well. Reaching out to people. This leader here at IGP, he knows his organization far better than I do. But if there are spaces and lanes that I can help support him in, that's why we're here, under that. So I applaud His Excellency's ensuring the rule of law, because that is going to be needed also to move things forward. So, these urgent priorities that you're going to hear about now, in the IT, will tell you these are not the wishes. And I'll be very candid and frank, when I have these conversations and listen to the members of the LNP, these are needed now. And again, when I talk about the challenges, we're going to mention those, but I also believe for many of you in this room today, because of your access, there's opportunities here, great opportunities here as well. The first, it was a common theme and something that I observed and saw, is when we think about the immense responsibility that the men and women of the LNP have every day. I talked about the challenges that they have. And IGP Coleman has publicly talked about this as well. They need to have an institutionalized, competitive, professional compensation. They simply do. They are being tasked and asked to do so much, and it needs to be reflected in professional compensation. When that does not occur, you're going to have issues of low morale, You can also have influences of corruption. And for the IGP, he needs to have a professional compensated workforce so that he can recruit, so that he can hire, he can retain those officers that, by the way, who are doing such a great job. Amidst the challenges, they might leave. He wants to keep them here. The other thing that professional compensation does too is it gives him a better pool of candidates that exude the character, the integrity, the values that he wants within those members of the LNP. This is not going to go away. When you talk about urgent priorities, this is not going to go away. This is something that has to be addressed. And it has to be something that is not a quick fix. It has to be something that when young people are looking at a life of service, a life to give back to Liberia, that sees them as necessary and valued, this is something that is going to be critical and key. And again, for the leader, IGP Coleman, he should be able to have a wide pool of candidates that come in, not for a paycheck, for purpose, but for purpose. So this is going to be very important. But this is an urgent priority. This is not a wish list. That professional, institutionalized compensation is going to be key and critical. IGP Coleman, his mission for the LNP, first thing right off the bat is the sanctity of life. LNP officers are not like any other profession. Most other professions, you're going to be judged by the body of your work, right? Whether you're a sports athlete, news entertainment, whatever it is, you're going to be judged by the body of your work. LNP officers are not. The singular most critical thing can happen to a police officer in their line of duty is use of force, the taking of life. IGP Coleman mentions about the sanctity of life, how that is so vital and critical. He needs to make sure the LNP officers are going home safely at the end of their shifts, but also the community. Currently, right now, firearms training within the LNP, it's inadequate. It's inadequate. Again, when we talk about all the things that an LNP officer can do in their career, that use of force they will be judged by forever. So it's important to make sure that LNP officers are getting regular, robust, quality skills firearms training, coupled with and married with de-escalation training. That has to go hand in hand. When that doesn't occur, it makes risks for the LNP officer themselves, their own personal safety, as well as Liberia people that they come into contact with. And obviously, there's going to be legal and liability issues when that is not attained. So having a robust, skills, qualified, regular training, married with de-escalation training, it's going to be very important. And again, it's helpful for not only the safety of the officers, but for the communities that they serve. If anybody's been in this place, Liberia, it's vast. You have your core central districts, but you also have your counties that are rural and wide in terms of population, in terms of distance. People will judge you on how fast or when you respond when we need you. In our most critical time, when we pick up the phone to call the LNP to come to us, are they going to come to us? In the States, for example, fire service, they are judged by a national time response. If it is a priority call, you have to respond within 3 or 5 minutes. It's a medical emergency. The public will gauge your performance on how fast or when you responded. The LNP, and when I talk to the leadership of the LNP, they want to be there. Their people want to respond, but they have to have an adequate fleet of vehicles. I know that the IGP has done, I want to say sometimes Houdini, a magical job of trying to get vehicles for your people, but they need more. And they need a fleet that's functioning, making sure the vehicles are adequate. This is very important, making sure that they respond quickly to those calls for service, and that they reach those that they protect wherever and whenever they call. This is also something we think about how our communities judge us, how they rate our reputation? Do you respond when I need you? Do you respond when I need you? And I know, again, this is something that the IG is working on, but vehicles are a need. An adequate vehicle fleet force is a need for the LNP. Have you ever heard the saying that hurt people hurt people? One of the most profound conversations I had with IGP Coleman one day is he said, think about this as a leader of an organization. He says, Arrandondo, every single man and woman who's serving right now in the LNP, they've experienced PTSD. They have lived through and endured 2 civil wars. All of them. And we're asking his people, his officers, to respond to community who, by the way, has also endured and lived through that. There's an African proverb that says, a hidden wound can't be healed. Many of the people right now serving admirably on the LNP have not had mental health checkups, have not talked to counselors, have not talked about what it meant to go through what they've gone through, and yet they give everything to put that uniform on to serve. We have to support IG Coleman in wanting to make sure he has a healthy organization. And let me be very clear, and I submit to you that although LNP officers have endured civil war, enduring is not the same as being resilient. They've all endured the Civil War, but what IG Coleman wants, he wants them to be resilient. Resilient is they've gone through the trauma, but resilient is circling back around, where they're healed, they're recovering, they're doing better than they were when they had to go through and endure that trauma. That's what he wants, and that's what these men and women need. When I told you, I sat down and talked to them, and I said, what makes you get up every day to put that uniform on? They said, we don't want our children, this next generation, to have to go through that. But they themselves have not gotten the support, the mental health resources that they need to continue to do this job. And I will submit to you as well, when you have someone who's not well in terms of their health and wellness, and they have to go out there every day to see and experience the things that they do, that could be a train wreck. IGP Coleman doesn't want that. By the way, we can all suffer and endure. It doesn't mean we're defective. IGP Coleman just wants to make sure that he's equipping them with the tools to navigate, to help them healthier, to get through that. And the public, the Liberian people want the best selves of those officers responding to it. It can help reduce stress and burnout and attrition. We talk about those use of force and help reduce the use of force. And we're supporting these men and women of the LNP so that they can serve their communities in a safe way, and they're healthy. And they deserve that. They deserve that. Switch over to Janelle.
Thank you. One of the findings from the assessment was that currently the LNP lacks state-of-the-art technology platforms to accurately collect and track important data. The headline of the slide is good data builds trust. Why is that? We talked about the importance of accountability of our public servants, and public trust is built through accountability. Accountability can be tracked and measured through data. If we can provide a robust data platform, it will enable the LNP to measure and report the results of these and other initiatives that they are engaged in. It will allow the LNP to take the pulse, see what's working, what needs a course correction, and thereby provide a higher level of service. And very importantly, it provides transparency to the public. We think of data as the people's portal to look inside the LNP, which is so important to them, and understand the work that they are doing. And through data, this is a tool not only to help ecosystem. And public safety, like public health, is impacted by those societal and environmental factors, these social determinants. By addressing these social determinants, we can work to identify the root causes of the most pressing public safety issues. The other finding, which is so encouraging to us, is that the LNP is very, very well positioned to do this because, as Rhonda mentioned earlier, in our daily lives as citizens, police officers are often that first face of government that we might meet in our daily lives. But in addition to that, IGP Coleman is investing in community engagement teams to build relationships with the people. So we believe the LNP can play a major role in advancing public health and safety pillars outlined by His Excellency the President and addressing the vision of IGP Coleman. So, in America, there's a saying in policing that is, you can't arrest your way out of every problem. Does anybody think that might ring true? You can't arrest our way out of every problem. What this expression directs our attention to is a point upstream from the police encounter. It says, look upstream from that arrest to find the root causes of a problem. This expression says that police are part of an ecosystem and we must look at the bigger picture. By doing so, we can identify opportunities for early intervention before that arrest even happens. And very importantly, this approach to policing moves policing farther along the spectrum from simply responding to crimes to actually preventing them. We have an example to share with you of what this approach looks like, and Rondo will tell you from his own experience that he's had. Just wanted to sum it up by sharing that in our country we have an epidemic problem of gun violence, and Rondo's example will address that. But gun violence is an example of a problem that is really at the nexus of public health and public safety, because the effects of gun violence are not just as much in the emergency room as they are in the courtroom. And so Rondo's example will show you how he worked with public health leaders when he was Chief of Police in Minneapolis to address the root causes of gun violence in our city and create effective interventions.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm excited about this public health, public safety approach, but really about prevention. And we'll talk a little bit more about this groundbreaking, innovative model that IGP Coleman will be moving forward with. When I was chief of police, and many of the leaders here of the LNP will understand this, a lot of our work was reactionary. We were having a high uptick in gun violence in our communities, and like many of our LNP leaders here, I happen to know the names, even the addresses of where those most violent folks were treating harm in our communities were. So our director of public health calls us in for a meeting, and she says, Rondo, she says, can you name the 5 individuals who are committing the most gun violence in your community? Absolutely. Name them off, just like that, even where they live. She then turned around and said, can you tell me when was the first time they were introduced into your agency, the police agency? She pulls up a graph and she says, well, we do. And she says, these individuals who are now 19, 20, and 21 who are causing most gun violence, they were first introduced into your agency when they were 3, 4, and 5 years old. And you know how they were introduced? They witnessed their mothers being assaulted, domestic violence. And your officers at the time, they did the right thing. They got to the call. The perpetrator was there. They made the arrest. The perpetrator was gone. They made a report. They gave it to the woman, and then they left. They noted the kids' names on the report. They were here, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and they left. What we didn't know at the time was those 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds had experienced trauma multiple times. And what the public health person said, and by the way, that 5-year-old, when they were 8 years old, guess what, Rhonda? They were no longer going to school. And by the way, Arrandondo, when they reached 12, they were shoplifting. They were committing petty theft. And by the way, Arrandondo, when they got to be 15, they were stealing cars. And by the time they turned 18, 19, now they're using guns to solve their problems. And I had thought that once we made an arrest when they were 19, 20 with a gun, they were sent off to jail, their work was done. IGP Coleman wants to use the LEP to do preventative work so that they're not having to deal with the aftermath of that person firing that gun. What can the LEP do under his leadership now at an early stage to not make sure that we're not avoiding, that we're not ignoring that 3, 4, and 5-year-old? And so that is what this public health, public safety lens looks like. So, when I first met IGP Coleman, one of the things that stood out to me right away was his character, his selflessness in wanting to build a police agency, a police service that the people trusted and respected. And while he's a man of good stature, that's a lot of weight on one person's shoulders. But he's always been determined, Rondo, I'm going to do this. And he also feels that he has an obligation to the people of Liberia today and to the next generation. And so, as we had more of a conversation, he mentioned to me about this upstream work of prevention. And he says, Rondo, I want to really create this model of using policing as a means of preventing conflict in our country. So while I was so fixated on getting to 19, 20-year-old and if we make the charge and make the arrest, he's going, no. He has a love for the country of Liberia. He has a love for the people. He understands the children. He wants to see how can we do our job in a way that's preventative. And he also wants to look at it. You have 15 counties here in Liberia. All of them, some of them have similarities, some of them are very different. What does climate change look like for one county? You know, what does conflict look like for Montserrat? So he's very focused on using this as a model that will also engage and build that trust between the communities and the LMP officers. So, he himself has experienced conflict. He has had to live through the civil wars as well. He understands the challenges of the state of the country's economy and a lack of available resources, particularly for young Liberians. But that's not a reason to not continue to pursue this, because there are opportunities here. His vision, his groundbreaking work of using policing as a means of preventing conflict, is attacking those root causes, is dealing with those issues upstream as a leader, as a police agency. And one of the ways that I certainly want to support him in his efforts, harnessing the power of the LMP and private sector partnerships to address root cause issues, to prevent conflict and replace despair with hope. I will give you an example of what that looks like, for example, for me back in the States when I was chief. Technology was a huge concern for us. And we did not have, quite frankly, enough cameras. We have a headquarters, we might have here in this country, but Target, shop retailer, huge retailer, they have a huge private sector in terms of technology in that base. Cameras are huge. They help us to fund camera systems. Those camera systems also make our communities feel safer when they're out and about. That partnerships that we continue to utilize them throughout the states. And IGP Coleman certainly believes that there are people out there that will help support through those private partnerships to help him in his effort to use this new model, using policing as ways of preventing conflict, replace despair with hope. And so I had the opportunity to sit down with Commander Blessing and some of her people from the community engagement team. The community engagement team, by the way, she was able to tell me, when I talked about this 3, 4, 5 years old, she was able to tell me names of young children. Oh, Rondo, this one's doing this in school, engagement team that is already out there. They've got the bandwidth already to help him instill this policing as a ways of preventing conflict. They know they have the relationships. I'm a firm believer that relationships are all about proximity, how close you are with your people. His community engagement team is already out there doing that. That is low-hanging fruit. They can deliver immediate successes. They can build those long-term relationships and build those bridges between young people and the LNP. And why do I keep talking about young people? I'll bring it back to the States. When we have a critical incident, people decide to take to the streets because they're not happy with government. Remember I told you? Those men and women who wear the uniform, they're the first face of government. I'll tell you, it ain't 60 and 70-year-olds that take to the streets. Oftentimes not. It's young people. And when young people feel despair, when they feel there's no hope, we need to reach those. IGP Coleman wants to reach those young people, and his community engagement team is already in place to do that. And also, you know what it does? It showcases the pride. I was at the ceremony today for Unitar, giving those certificates. The men and women of the LNP, they don't do this job for the thanks or the accolades. But I will tell you, when they walk up to give their certificates, there's honor in that. It is a noble and honorable profession that they're doing. And this unit, this division, can help with the IGP's plan of moving forward with this policing as a means of preventing conflict. This is just an example. I'll go through this quickly. But the IG and his leadership team, they know, they know what are the unique characteristics of the different counties. And so, as an example, it might be climate change in one of the counties. It might be conflict in Montserrat. The IG and his teams can look at where are the necessary resources that we can put a target and focus into those counties as policing, using it as a ways of preventing conflict and making sure that it's tailored specific to those different counties, whether it's technology, economic, agriculture, crime and conflict, or public health. And again, he's got a wonderful team that is already on the ground who has those relationships.
Just to close, a quick recap about the importance of research and measurement and the rich information, actionable information that data can give us, and the importance of measuring that in a targeted way in alignment with the interventions and programs that are targeted to individual counties and their unique circumstances.
The IG wants to make sure that he can do this work and launch his model, this innovative program over the next several years. And I want to make sure that he has the support that he needs to do this. When I have this up, if there are urgent challenges, again, this isn't a wish list. When I talk to the LNP leadership team, whether it's professionalized or institutionalized professional compensation, vehicles, firearms training, health and wellness, those are things that they needed years ago. It's not a wish list. As the IG said, they need it now. And so, it's important that certainly people in this room here, we can use our influence in whatever capacity we can to help support him in his mission. Again, I want to thank to all of our distinguished guests, honorees here today. Thank you so much for the work that you continue to do. And I just have to say, IGP Coleman, thank you again for your leadership during this time. You are here for a reason, for a purpose,